Howdy, howdy, y'all. This is another Maharaj chapter. Chapter 39. By itself, nothing has existence. Which is a really weird concept, when you think about it first. You're like, wait a minute, what? Isn't nothing like literally the opposite of existence? Like, there's things that exist and then there's not things that exist, right? Like, that's how we understand that kind of as a duality of sorts. Um, But he turns this notion, on its head a bit. At first, this converse it's interesting. So at first, this what's interesting about this just chapter in the context of the rest of this book is that despite this being a whole book of just various different conversations with random folks and whatnot, um, it's a very very self-aware um, book. And because he talks constantly about it, especially at this point, how like yeah, he's like these truths, you have to say them over and over again. You kind of have to. I think he. I don't. Yeah, he. You have to. Essentially, like you have to hammer in the point. That is what he is saying. Like which I have been talking about. That's what this book does. And yeah, he's. It's very self-aware, which is kind of interesting. It's interesting how you can formulate these conversations and make them work that way. But yeah, he even says at one point that, um, yeah, like you have to say it over and over again for it to, kind of be true, or at least I think what he's really trying to say is for it to sink in. But remember, these are kind of like rough translations, as well. So that's kind of part of the issue with a lot of this. Is sometimes is like the way the wording is and stuff. Um, yeah, but overall, this is once again very interesting. Chapter, especially because yeah, like I say the first part of it's just really talking about like why like I've been going over and over about like how this hammers these points home, especially like the I am and going back to like that you're more than just this person, this being. Um, but then they get into some very interesting points, like discussion about like the witness and consciousness and the relationship between the two. Um, so, for example, um, wha- to know that consciousness and its content are but reflections, changeful and transient, is the focusing of the real. The refusal to see the snake in the rope is the necessary condition for seeing the rope. So what you're trying to say is like, and I think when especially when because he's going with this like snake rope metaphor, which I, from my understanding, seems like it's like you can see the good or you can see the bad. And so I think he's saying it's like you have to be able to recognize that bad, but still have that refusal to see it or like accept it and see and accept and the good, as in the rope. And so the question is though is like is only necessary or also sufficient? Maharaj, one must also know that a rope exists and looks like a snake. Similarly, one must know that the real exists and is of nature, the nature of witness consciousness. Of course, it is beyond the witness, but to enter it, one must first realize the state of pure witnessing. The awareness of conditions brings one to the unconditioned. And this is where it gets interesting, this talking about of the unconditioned. Because the questioner, can the unconditioned be experienced? Maharaj, to know the conditioned as conditioned is all that can be said about the unconditioned. Positive terms are mere hints and misleading. Questioner, can we talk of witnessing the real? Maharaj, how can we? Sorry, how can we? We can talk of the unreal, the illusionary, the transient, the conditioned. To go beyond, we must pass through total negation of everything as having independent existence. All things depend. Questioner, on what do they depend? Maharaj, on consciousness, and consciousness depends on the witness. Questioner, and the witness depends on the real? Maharaj, the witness is the reflection of the real in all its purity. It depends on the condition of the mind, where clarity and detachment predominate. The witness consciousness comes into being. It is just like saying that where the water is clear and quiet, the image of the moon appears, or like daylight that appears as sparkle in the diamond. Questioner, can there be consciousness without the witness? Maharaj, without the witness, it becomes unconsciousness, just living. The witness is latent in every state of consciousness, just like light in every color. There can be no knowledge without the knower, and no knower without his witness. Not only you know, but you know that you know. And keeps going on and on. Like, it's a very, like, this part of it, like, especially this last part of it, I just found all of this so interesting because I don't know. I feel like he's getting this. He doesn't normally get this kind of deep into like the weeds about certain like all these different details. Like he has in the past with a few of these chapters, but I like when he hammers home about this sort of stuff too. I think I don't know. It's just because it's. I mean, especially the metaphors he uses to describe it, like the light. Like just like light in every color. You know, there can be no knowledge without the knower, because we can understand that, right? Like, I mean, you can maybe argue, oh, facts exist independent of beings being able to understand that those things are facts, but I mean, that gets into a whole messy sort of thing, right? Like, it's like, personally, I say, like, even if that is the case, it certainly seems to be the case from our perspective that either way is indistinguishable, but from my understanding, yeah. Anyways, like I said, this is a very interesting. Like I said, this whole chapter. He also talks about how the Gani, is not afraid of death because they already know that they're already dead. Time and space and all this is an illusion. They've already died. They're already born and dead, and all that. Like the death life thing is all an illusion anyway. So he even says the Gani is already dead to name and shape. How can their loss affect him? The man in the train travels from place to place, but the man off the train goes nowhere, for he is not bound for a destination. He has nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to become. Those who make plans will be born to carry them out. Those who make no plans need not be born. So, yeah, and that's like at the yeah, and so that's pretty much at the end, though. I would say where this whole thing gets interesting because then they get into like and starts asking about pain and pleasure, and then kind of from there he brings up God, and once he brings up God, he gets I don't know, it gets very just like it gets a bit debatey, um, and he takes very much what he's like Maharaj is saying like very literal and just very like how the he looks very he becomes like the tone changes. It becomes just from like an interesting like kind of conversational tone to a debating tone. Like I'm trying to take you down. I'm trying to prove you wrong now, sort of tone. Um, for example, he says, the questioner, God may be a mere concept, a working theory, a very useful concept all the same. Maharaj, for this it must be free of inner contradictions, which is not the case. Why not work on the theory that you are your own creator, your own creation and creator? At least there will be no external God to battle with. Questioner, the world is so rich and complex. How can I create it? Maharaj, do you know yourself enough to know that you can what you can do and what you cannot do? You do not know your own powers. You never investigated. Begin with yourself now. Questioner. Everybody believes in God. And this is the last thing said in this chapter. I'll end the video on this. This is Maharaj. To me, you are your own God. But if you think otherwise, think to the end. If there be God, then all is God's, and all is for the best. Welcome all that comes with a glad and thankful heart, and love all creatures. This too will take you to yourself. So, with that, which is it's all about love, and I think with that, I'll I'll end the video. So, hope you all have a good one. Peace.